In Lords of the Fallen, there are a whole bunch of tough enemies and bosses that are just out to absolutely decimate your health, so knowing which items, which weapons and which spells to use can really help you to get the most from the game. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the best Radiant spells that you can possibly get hold of in order to do a lot of damage and make a truly powerful build. So the first one we're going to be looking at, and one that is really easy to use, is going to be Piercing Light. At just 29 mana, this one is very cost efficient, you can use it in almost any situation and it tackles everything very well. It's got quite a bit of range to it, and the amount of damage it puts out is also really nice for how much mana you're actually expending. Because of just how cheap this one is, you can spam it very often, making it very viable as soon as you get hold of it to the very end of the game, although overall there are definitely spells that are going to outperform this for damage. The only thing to be careful about is when you find things that are slightly higher up, for example things on stairs, so sometimes elevated enemies aren't the best because this goes in a straight line. However, most times this is a great spell to use and to keep on your bar if you want that very cost efficient. Coming in at number 7, and we're going to have one of my personal favourites, and that's going to be Sanctifier. This one does cost 120 mana, but it's probably the best health regen going on in the game, as it's going to give you around about 40 HP every time you're sitting within that circle. This is the ultimate I want to stay here and I don't want to be moved kind of spell, and it works very well if you're using a very durable and tanky build. Personally, I tend to get hit probably a lot more often than I should have in these games, so being able to survive encounters and knowing which is going to give me the most HP back definitely helps out in certain situations. Also, it's a great one to have against any really tough elite or boss enemies, as with a perfect setup, especially if you've got some other health regen or mitigation going on, you can quite easily use this on a boss, sit in it and absolutely smash their health to pieces whilst regenning your own as you go. At number 6, we have probably the highest damage one for the Radiant class, and that's going to be your Lucent Beam. This thing is an absolute powerhouse, and whatever you set your sights on going to get decimated very quickly. It does a lot of damage very fast, hits them over and over as long as you're holding down the button, although it doesn't kind of have the optimal range of some of the other spells. It is a little bit mid to closer range, but can be used as an absolute nuke in the right builds. The only bad thing about this, you do have to be holding the button down in order to make it work efficiently, and if you haven't taken the enemy out then you may get hit by others or the original enemy in the process, so a great thing I've found to do, especially when you're on those single targets, is to soul flay them first and then do this, and you'll do a lot of damage without the risk of getting completely annihilated. In at number 5 for our first aura skill is going to be Invigorating Aura. If you're all about health regen like we saw earlier, this time you're not going to need to be sitting in any kind of a sigil. This is going to be on you permanently, and it's going to help you tackle enemies left, right and centre, because your health regen is going to be off the charts. You get roughly 20 or 30 HP per second with this, and it can make you extremely durable. The only problem is there is quite mana hungry because it's on constantly, so you will see it permanently draining that mana. Definitely something you'll want if you've got a dedicated build for it, and one great thing that you can definitely have in place is going to be the Mana Stone Ring. This can help anything in your build that's completely mana hungry, so if you're after an aura build or just want a lot more regen going on in your build, then a Mana Stone Ring can help out overall. If however you did want to turn this off, like with any of the spells that are permanent, just press the same button again and that will turn it off, allowing you to keep a bit more mana in your build. Coming in at number 4, if you're going to be all about that bleed and going into some kind of a bleed build, then Lacerating Weapon is going to be the spell you're after. This spell is going to allow you to plunge your weapon into the earth and imbue it with a coating of blood. Once that's done, it's going to mean your character's weapon has a kind of blood coating for a minute and a half and can really help you to dwindle down your enemy's health. Whilst this spell's in effect, once you're hitting your enemies, you'll be able to build up the bleeding on them until it takes effect and then does a little damage over time. This can really help you to dwindle down some enemies' health, but also whilst that's on them, you're going to hit them harder with your physical attacks. Remember, pretty much every weapon you've got in this game is based around physical, sometimes of course with other elements, but they do contain physical damage, so you'll be hitting them harder just because you've applied that bleed upon them. And if you can manage it, another great thing to do is to add this ring right here and try and factor some poison into your build as well. For example, on some weapons such as Kukachin's sword. If you can do that, then you'll be able to apply poison and you'll be able to apply bleed, and some of the poison transfers into the bleed, allowing you to pull off the effect a little bit faster. Over to number 3, and this one is something that I always have equipped, and that's going to be Aura of Tenacity. If you're all about making sure that your character is very durable, like we saw earlier, there's a whole bunch of auras and buffs and just damage mitigation going on in the Holy class, but this one is second to none. Aura of Tenacity basically means you're going to be a lot more durable. It gives you a roughly around about 25% damage mitigation and can really help you out to take those toughest of hits. However, even though it's not part of the Radiant range, I'm going to show you a spell that works perfect hand in hand with this. A Diz hardiness as well. If you can manage to fit it into your build, this will overall give you almost 50% damage mitigation and will allow you to tackle some of the toughest enemies in the game, and with a little bit of health regen as well going on in your build, will probably make you as survivable as you'll ever need to be. Coming in at number 2, and my favourite overall spell for the Holy class, is going to be Aias Judgement. This is just an absolute game changing spell, it really is. It does take 35 in Radiance, so you do have to be specced into it quite a lot, but the amount of damage, the amount of things going for this spell is absolutely amazing. It's got a lot of range to it, it's got a lot of damage to it, and one of the best things about it is just how many times it can hit. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but a ridiculous 16 times it can hit an enemy. But because it hits so often, and because it does posture damage every single time it hits, it makes this one of the very best spells in the game. Also, if you look in the background here, another amazing thing about this spell, once it takes out an enemy, it then auto tracks the closest target and goes after them with the remainder of the spell. Honestly, there's nothing quite like this spell in the game, and we can boost it by making it even more ridiculous by equipping one of the best pendants for the Radiant class, and that's the Triptych pendant. Now you've got a spell that hits so many times that is almost definitely going to knock off a target's posture straight away, allowing you to go straight into that Grievous Strike and gain additional damage to some of the toughest enemies in the game very easy. The only reason this isn't number 1 is because it is very mana hungry. It does cost 120 to cast, but in my opinion it's definitely worth it, and keeping it as a reserve can help you tackle some of the toughest enemies and bosses very easy, whilst also going about what you want to do because it's just going off in the background. Last but definitely not least, this is one that I would say most builds are probably going to be using if you're going down the old Radiant or Holy route. Radiant weapon is going to put that whole coating on your sword. It's going to allow you to hit like an absolute truck. The more you spec into your Radiance, the more damage you're going to do, and as we saw earlier, because you'll probably be using that pendant if you've got it, it's going to allow you to go into a stagger very fast and easy. This is probably one of the best spells in the game currently, a little bit broken with that pendant most times, and I found it just cuts through whole waves of enemies, bosses, elites, whatever you want to take care of, fast, efficiently, and you don't have to worry too much about things. But yeah, that's going to be my top picks for the best spells in the Radiant class. If there's any you feel I've missed off, then why not chuck it in the comments, and if you've enjoyed the video, a thumbs up would be appreciated, and if you'd like to become a member of the channel, then why not hit that subscribe and bell icon. But for now, as always, take care. I'll see you on next day.